The Battletoads defined what it meant to be NES hard, even when it wasn't on the NES. Brutal difficulty, sexy babes, big muscles, gritty action, and not afraid to offend, and hell, it even had a cartoon tie-in. The Battletoads were the 90s personified, and pretty much everything this new Battletoads isn't. But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Battletoads Reboot!
Hey gamers, it's me, Spammer D. So I'm just gonna throw this out there right now. If you don't know who the Battletoads are, you probably weren't a gamer during the 8-bit era. And you know what, that's fine. New Toads doesn't need you to be. Instead, by combining a bit of TMNT, the new Rayman games, Galaga, freaking Warioware, Modern Cartoon Network, and clearly anything that just popped into the devs' heads, this new Battletoads certainly sets itself apart from what came before. But does it work? Most of it does. So one of the biggest changes for the series that hits us right off the bat is the story. Classic Toads have always had a story, but it was usually just regulated to the background, mostly there just to score a few laughs. But not this time. This time we get personalities, character development, voice acting, and cringe. Oh, lots and lots of cringe.
Listen, I've been up all night mimicking the methods of TV detectives. Tracking, triangulating, enhance.
Did the Zune explode?
I told you not to kill its competition.
I thought it was the optimal media player.
And I told him I don't care about games from the 90s. Some things are just meant to stay buried forever.
Honestly, between the jokes and the animation, this really does feel like a modern day cartoon that I'd expect to see airing on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they were aiming for in the long run. Gone is that gritty look from the classics, and in its place is a much cleaner, much smoother look that tries to shock more with over-the-top or just plain weird designs. And really, whether you like it or not, it's more of a personal preference than anything a reviewer like me could ever decide for you. So, not really good or bad. Personally though, it's not the kind of style I particularly enjoy. I'm more of an anime man myself, and I certainly found myself rolling my eyes quite a bit. Especially early on. Though once the Dark Queen appeared, which by the way, this is her.
Dark Queen? You look different than I remember.
Did I mention that this isn't the 90s anymore? Surprisingly though, I actually found it growing on me. They clearly were having fun with this one. But if you don't like it, you can always skip the cutscenes and get right into the action, which absolutely delivers. Whether you like the style or not, there is no denying that it is done well. And it isn't just limited to the cutscenes. From sledding to minigames, hacking to punching hippies, the game looks gorgeous with that cartoony animated style. And the music certainly fits the part too, rocking out during the action segments and just matching the tone when things get weird. And this is probably just my nostalgic bias shining through, but my favorite tracks were easily the remasters from the classic games, particularly the main theme and Turbo Tunnel. Oh yeah, the nightmare that was the Turbo Tunnels returns, reborn for a new generation, alongside a lot of other staples of the classic franchise. Though most players, old school and new school alike, probably wouldn't even realize it since most of us couldn't even dream of making it to those levels. Even today. Which is probably why most of us tend to think of Battletoads as primarily a beat 'em up. Though I really hesitate to label Battletoads, especially this one, under any one genre. While the game starts out as a beat 'em up, like most of them do, it's absolutely a mixed bag, with the better stuff coming much later, like the platforming. It's probably easiest just to tackle them all in individual parts, so let's just jump right into it. So, despite me being a huge beat 'em up fan, I'd say that the side-scrolling platforming segments in the second half of the game are easily the game's strongest suit, feeling very similar to the newer Rayman games. You have obstacles pushing you to move fast and react even faster, all while requiring you to think about how you'll progress. Expect to die here. A lot. Though other times you gotta take it slow and puzzle solve. Honestly, if the jumping was just a bit tighter, I'd be all in for an entire game made in this style. The top-down bullet hell segments could also be expanded into their own game entirely, though don't let the visuals fool you, because what you might perceive as a top-down shooter is actually a twin-stick shooter in disguise. Think Smash TV or Geometry Wars. One stick moves your ship and the other unleashes hell. This one offers up some very hectic gameplay with decent enemy variety, forcing you to be a lot more strategic than you'd think. Expect to die here. A lot. The only real issue this part has is that some of the bullets just seem to randomly pass through you, then at other times they don't? I don't really get it, and no, I'm not talking about the dodge ability. And speaking of things I don't get, in between the levels you get Warioware style minigames, where half of the challenge is literally just figuring out what to do. Like, seriously, what the hell is going on here? Really, the majority of them are just simple time button commands, and they're pretty hit or miss. Though whether you want to consider the sledding and the speeder bite segments under this category as well is really up to you. But know that they are solid. Just timing jumps and dodging obstacles. Great stuff. Oh, and expect to die here. A lot. Personally, I enjoyed the majority of the breaks away from the conventional combat, which is a great strategy to use when managing the repetitive nature of the beat-em-up genre. So this was a good call. But now it's time for the main course.
Oh yeah, yum yum time!
Now, if you follow this channel for a while, you know how I feel about beat-em-ups. But I'd argue that it is unfortunately the weakest aspect of the game. But let's put a little asterisk there real quick. And what's really weird is that it was genuinely difficult to pinpoint what exactly it was that felt off about this. Because the combat has a lot going for it. You have a number of moves including fast hits, power strikes, combos, a grab, and even a long-range stun. Plus, there are a variety of enemy types, with some even utilizing the environment, forcing you to be more aware of your surroundings. Even more so, each Toad feels unique with their speed and power, and when playing solo, you can even switch between them at will, which also works as a combo extender. On top of that, the game also treats each of the Toads as an individual life, with a respawn timer on any of your fallen Toads, instead of just having the standard 1-up system like in days of old. I think this really works, especially since you're gonna die. A lot. Although, this is where I take umbrage with the death. Now, in this game's defense, unlike its retro counterparts, you can actually beat this game. Death may come swiftly, and it may come often, but fast loads and a lot of checkpoints keeps things moving at a solid pace. Plus, you know, saving. There's something that the classics sorely lacked. You can even customize the difficulty a bit, like by removing invincibility time between deaths or warning signals from ranged enemy attacks. But here's the thing, despite how much this combat has going for it, it still kinda just feels cheap. As beautiful as the animations are, half of them just lock you down, leaving you wide open to enemy attacks, making them pretty worthless. The power strike needed to break through enemy shields is just as bad, despite enemies being clearly open when their shields are down. Enemies are constantly pop-shotting you from across the stage, so creating clean combos is way more of a chore than it has any right to be, and all of the tongue moves use the same animation when they fail, making you question if you used the wrong button combo or if you were just in the wrong spot. And of course, enemies just have way too much health. Overall, it's just kind of clunky. Oh, that was quite the rant. But all of that really does just juxtapose the cooler aspects of the combat. But you remember that asterisk from earlier? Because it matters. Like any good beat 'em up, most of the combat issues just fade away as soon as you've got your buddies by your side. Battletoads has up to 3-player co-op, and the game absolutely feels like it was designed with that in mind. Enemies just go down faster and they can't cheap shot you as easily since you can all cover more ground, freeing you up to use those riskier moves. Overall, combat just flows better in multiplayer. Plus, they've got a Gears of War style teammate revival system for when you go down. again straying away from that classic live system, which also adds more value to working together. And of course, the co-op works super well in the other modes too. Overall, co-op just kicks this game up a notch, which really begs the question, why in 2020 is there no online co-op? You idiots. Look, I love couch co-op as much as the next guy, probably even more, but let's be real here, it's 2020. The technology for online co-op is there. Local co-op is a bit problematic at the moment, and honestly, it's just the game's biggest shortcoming, by far. Which, if you get the PC version, you can at least get around using Steam or Parsec, but Xbox players, you're out of luck. And really, you should play this game co-op if you want the true Battletoads 2020 experience, which in many ways is its own thing. Battletoads 2020 does not feel like a classic Battletoads game at all. And while I do miss the grit and gore personally, but let's be real here, the classic Battletoads feeling is just you dying over and over and over again until you either quit or break out the Game Genie. Battletoads 2020 decides to do its own thing, and it does it well, while also fixing a lot of the more frustrating issues that makes the classic titles hard to go back to. It looks amazing, the music rocks, and there is so much gameplay variety here. And if you're into the kind of humor it presents, then I think you're gonna have a great time, even if it is a bit on the short side at roughly 3 to 4 hours. Still, I recommend it. It's absolutely worth checking out, but only if you have a way to play co-op. Flying solo, the game's rougher edges will certainly scrape you up.